Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. This is The World Today, and I'm your host, Rabbi Dr. Sophia Catherine Woodley Von Rothschild. Today we have a very special friend of mine and a guest that has been doing a lot of good work at The World Today. He is Kevin Nicholas. He's the president and founder of the Social Engineering Project. Uh, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, excellent. Could you tell us briefly why did you choose the name the Social Engineering Project, and how did it get started?
I selected the name comes from a quote from Charles Hamilton Houston, a famous lawyer who laid down the groundwork from the Brown versus Board of Education cases. He said a lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. So technically, I'm not a lawyer or an engineer, but the way that I use the quote is you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. So this organization I started about 8 years ago now focuses on the lack of diversity in the tech industry. I started it with a buddy of mine from high school, who's a professor at the School of Education at Stanford University. And we started out doing a middle school summer program at the Stanford Graduate School of Education. And since then, we've added numerous programs and served middle school, junior high, and high school, and some college students, getting them interested in traditional STEM and hopefully matriculating into the STEM field and working in the tech industry.
Excellent. Do you have? Do you also have? Is it a specific focus on mostly the West Coast, East Coast, or is it nationwide?
Uh, we started out focusing on the Bay Area, and during the pandemic, we were able to scale our programs nationally because we were doing virtual programs with a partnership with the National Society of Black Engineers. We were in most of the major cities throughout the country, sending labs virtually and doing virtual programs. But since the pandemic has ended, we are focused on Northern California right now. So most of our programs are in the Silicon Valley, Oakland area, and Sacramento area.
Oh, excellent. Uh, in terms of focus, it's you say STEM, which is basically science, technology, engineering, and math. Are you is there any particular subject you focus, or is it do you focus on all aspects, or you focus mostly on say the engineering aspects of it?
Well, there are a lot of organizations out there doing computer science, AI, that kind of stuff. We focus more on traditional STEMs. We look at chemistry, physics, math, and science. Our goal really is to get students to be able to overcome any adversities regarding the core, how do you refer to it in college? Your prerequisites. A lot of times, choosing your major, there are prerequisite requirements that you have to fulfill, and they often involved a science and a math. And so, if you have an aversion to those subject matters going into college, most likely you'll be a social science major because you want to avoid those subject matters. So, our goal really is to empower students to be able to overcome any adversity with physics, chemistry, and math and science, hopefully major in something STEM related, and eventually, like I said, matriculate into the tech industry.
Yeah. A big problem is a lot of the say women minorities. They tend to be in this field. They tend to be discouraged from entering the field because of institutionalized um, racism and other barriers. What are some of the steps your organization has implemented to help overcome these institutionalized barriers to women and minority get involved in the STEM field?
I'm sorry, I missed your question.
Okay, so the question was that in many instances, minorities and women are they tend we there's seem to be a history of institutionalized barriers that kept them out of the STEM profession.
Mhm.
How is your organization dealing with that problem?
So most of our programs are not most, yeah, pretty much most of our programs, if not all of them, have a 50-50 gender usual enrollment, which is not necessarily by design, but we we send out the information in general, but the feedback we get back is that, both young men and young women want to participate in our programs, which is excellent for us. We focus on empowerment during our curriculum. So it's focused on culturally relevant STEM. So we get students to understand that Black and brown folks actually created STEM, and that come from a history of innovators and creating patents and creating other things that have helped the world, including looking at Egypt and Kemet, as well as the pyramids and some of the Mayan pyramids, et cetera. So we look at Black and brown folks from a different lens, with the goal of hopefully encouraging and inspiring them to say, look, you have a historic past of being able to do this. You can actually do this too. So, but from a gender perspective, we highlight both successes in gender, but we don't specifically highlight it from that standpoint. And that might be something that we look at in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Do you how the in speaking of institutions, do you also have work with, say, historical Black colleges and Black institutions?
We do. We actually, I just got back from the National Society of Black Engineers 50th anniversary convention in Atlanta, and did a tour of the Atlanta University system. So went to Spelman, Clark, Atlanta, Morehouse, etc. We do have partnerships with those schools. We hire students that work in, or graduate students who are doing dual degree programs at Georgia Tech, to serve as counselors for our Science in the City camp at Stanford. So it's an opportunity to not only work with these institutions, but hire these students and hopefully encourage them to come work at the Department of Energy, where I also work as at Berkeley Lab. I work in the diversity office, and I work on recruiting and retaining diverse postdoc talent to do research on an academic level in an institution like a Department of Energy owned lab.
Oh, excellent, very good. In terms of media exposure, because you can have the greatest ideas or the greatest institution, but if you don't have media exposure, it tends to be fade out after a while. So how do you use the media, both social media space and also traditional media space, Black media space and regular media space, to get the message out of the fantastic work you're doing?
Good question. We use a number of different mechanisms. Social media, we try. We're on, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or X, depending upon how you refer to it. Mostly disseminating information, but we spend a lot of our time on LinkedIn because that's where our audience resonates mostly with us. We don't have much success per se of going viral, et cetera, on regular social media, but LinkedIn seems to be very treats us really nicely. Mm-hmm. And with regards to traditional media, we belong to different distribution lists where I send out a lot of information to. I have two of the oldest LinkedIn groups that exist. The day that LinkedIn announced groups, I grabbed two. So I disseminate information there. One of my groups has about 10,000 members there, so we're able to advertise and share what's going on with our programs here locally. But we could benefit more getting more national exposure from other news outlets. And maybe when we have a PR firm or publish press releases, et cetera, we might be able to do more.
Excellent. Yeah, well, how about, for example, have you, there are some well-established media personalities that are getting a lot of traction, like, for example, Roland Martin and others. Have you think about trying to get them to, spread the message for you?
Well, we've actually been a guest on Roland Martin's show before.
Awesome.
And I do a lot in Washington, D.C. with the Congressional Black Caucus. And there is a Tech 2025 initiative that Congresswoman Barbara Lee is involved in, who I do a lot of work with here locally. And because of that, I'm in DC often, and so I bumped into Roland before. Someone's recommended our work, and we've been featured on their show. And a lot of that information can be found on our website under press. You can see that interview. But yes, we've had some good successes. Hasn't been consistent and hasn't gone viral per se, but we're in the right places, and hopefully things will take off for us eventually.
Awesome. I also one of the things that I find very inspiring about you is that you have kept many big companies feet to the fire when it comes to diversity, because I know that, for example, minorities are top consumers and customers with these big tech companies, and I think it's only logical that they hire more minorities. So how do you continue to keep these giant social media companies feet to the fire?
Well, ironically, good way is to allow these companies to actually put their money as well as their time and volunteer hours, et cetera, where their mouth is. So it's one thing to ask a company or point out to a company that they could do better, et cetera, but it's also important to highlight and announce when companies are putting their money where their mouth is. We have different sponsors that are mostly tech companies locally, and they will organize their employee base to volunteer. For example, I have an overnight camping conference. I take about 120 kids camping, and so we rely on companies to send their employees to be counselors for this, and also lead workshops on the kind of technology that they create throughout their tenure where they work. So the companies will pay for that. They'll volunteer their hours as well, and then from there are opportunities where we partner even deeper. So this summer we have 2 of our students from our career mentorship symposium that will actually get 2 paid summer internships at GoPro this summer. So it's really about deepening our relationship with companies and allowing them to hire students to hopefully participate in that pendulum of getting youth into college, into graduation, to working in a tech company. So internships are the easiest way to make sure that they make their way to the tech industry.
Excellent. I also know that there's a lot of minorities in very critical, very important positions within the tech industry. At Chime, at Apple, do you plan to use those individuals to kind of spread the message and try to get more traction?
Well, Priscilla Alfaral, she just joined our board recently in the last couple months. She's one of the ERG leaders at Chime, and Apple leads a workshop, has been leading a workshop at my overnight camp since we started it in 2017. So both companies particularly are very connected or understand and know about our work and what we're doing. As far as getting sustainable funding from them and being able to leverage that relationship to expand the work that we're doing, those are the conversations and action items that we have going forward to try to make with all our sponsors. Funding and other things like that are very challenging, especially when there are layoffs, and the tech industry is taking a hit right now in general with their stock, et cetera. So we have to be sensitive to this, but we also know that in order for this to change, people are going to have to put in resources, time, energy, and money in order to make it happen.
Oh, right on. I agree totally. In terms of your organization, do you also in the future think about probably next 2 years or 5 years, think about trying to reach out and connect with other entities in Africa and the Caribbean, because that's also a growing marketplace for tech companies?
This is true. We Actually, so one of our earliest programs we started was a we partnered with the United Nations. Um, we organized the United States team for a global hackathon that we do with them to stop human trafficking and cyber theft. So we are familiar with what's going on currently throughout the world, and we partner with a couple of an African American Chamber of Commerce as well as some other organizations that are on the continent that have reached out that we've had meetings with and discussed about how we might be able to scale and help other countries develop STEM programs and help improve their abilities and their opportunities to introduce themselves into the tech industry. So there are conversations and things that we're having. We're not opposed to doing that. Right now, we just at a place where we're working on our capacity. You know, we can't do everything at once. We have company sponsorship. We have foundational support. We can hire more staff, and we can put more heads together to figure out how to solve a global crisis that exists as opposed to what we're faced with in California.
Excellent. Um, and what are some words? What are the words of encouragement do you have for minorities who want to get involved in the STEM field?
Well, for me, I believe passionately that math and science is all around us, and our ancestry allows us to be able to feel comforted that we've accomplished and can achieve in this space. It's really about making the connections of what it is that math and science really is in our day-to-day lives. So when I talk to a student, I encourage a student to understand and learn what a derivative is. They may not understand what a derivative is, but if I can tell them that, you know, a Colin Kaepernick throwing a football, 60 yards at a person who's running at a certain speed, who catches it in stride, is actually, that curve is a derivative, then the student's going to understand it. So really making sure that people can relate to the technology that's out there, the math that exists in their day-to-day lives, and hopefully then be able to master it and know that it's just having to look at it from a different perspective to make the connection.
That's a very good point because when I was growing up, when I was very young, in our culture, there's an emphasis on learning. And one thing that by the age of 2, we learned that you go to the store, you want to buy something, it's mathematics. They give you cost a certain amount, you give a certain amount, you get a certain change back, and you got the bus come at 10 o'clock. You gotta know what time to be at the bus station to get the bus, or you're gonna miss the bus. How in that regard, how are you gonna? One thing many people have told me that one way to get people involved in the STEM industry is to get them as young as possible, like in the very early years of their development. Do you have any plan of doing that?
Well, ironically, on Saturday, May 4th, I have our Family Science Day at Google's headquarters. That's a whole entire family event where we have age-appropriate STEM-related workshops for K through 4, 5th through 8, and 9th through 12. They will learn everything from robotics to traditional STEM. Actually, the grant and the organization that we're dealing with at Google is around Google data centers. So the students are actually going to learn a lot about electrical engineering and how fans on laptop computers and air conditioning units and water, et cetera, keep data centers cool in order to be able to store all of the world's data in these data centers. So that's an all-day thing, and then actually the parents actually have a workshop as well. And what they learn about is what they can do to help support the work that we're doing as an organization, but also keep their students motivated outside of our programs. So we're looking at education, STEM education from as early as kindergarten on, and it takes a village, and that's what we're trying to create.
Okay. Yes, indeed. I certainly concur with that. How about the area of there's during slavery, minorities were discouraged from reading, discouraged from writing, discouraged from the math. and then they were the Jim Crow, and then you had all that problems that were people were literally discouraged from engaging in the science and technology field and the maths field. Um, how is the organization working to overcome some of these historical vestiges of racism, like slavery?
Well, part of it is education. Like I said, we look at our history, what we were still able to accomplish, even though we, endured so much from slavery to Jim Crow to everything else that particularly Black people have experienced. That we still have overcome those obstacles and are still excelling in the highest areas that we can excel in. Is what we teach through our curriculum, through our programming. We also recognize that it takes using science to empower not only themselves but their surrounding communities. So one of our labs that we do in our middle school camp is using virtual reality to show what a water faucet looks like being turned on in Flint, Michigan. We'll show the students that we'll see dirty water coming out of a faucet. We teach the students how to build water filtration units where they segregate out the dirty water from the clear water. And then we'll teach the students how to go online to locate who their elected officials are to deal with what remains in the cup, which is the lead. So we teach students not only to look at science as a vehicle to protect themselves and their immediate family, but how to lobby and protect their surrounding community as well. So that is just one example of how we're using our curriculum, using our technology to be able to empower you to overcome obstacles that they may have existed.
Oh, awesome. Once again, well, first of all, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today, Kevin. You are an inspiration, and I am always honored to speak with you. I always learn from you, and it's always a pleasure to have somebody of your stature to come on my show and speak to me and give me some knowledge and wisdom what's going on in the world. And even though, yes, I have a PhD in physics and a doctorate in history and calculus, and as a CEO myself, if you need anything, let me know. Maybe I can make some connections for you on my end. And once again, Kevin, as always, your inspiration, and thank you a million for being on my show today. Have a good day.
My pleasure. Take care, and good luck with your podcast.
Thank you so much. Bye.